Okay, so let's talk about the ls command. The ls command is used for listing files and directories. When you hear the word listing, think about looking what's inside, taking a look at what's inside a particular folder. Listing a directory is synonymous to looking inside a folder, right? So when you do the ls command, what you're doing is you're taking a peek at what's inside a particular folder, right? What I did graphically right now, I list that directory because I can see what's in there. In the command line, we call it listing a directory. So type cd here, do clear. Okay, the simplest way to use ls is by simply typing ls. And when you do that, it will list your current working directory. I'm going to repeat that. The ls command by default, without argument, without nothing else, just ls will list your current working directory. Now, if you want to see another directory other than your current working directory, all you have to do is provide the directory right after you type ls. So I would like to see what's inside downloads. So I do ls downloads, and it shows me what's inside there. Essentially, what I just did right now when I ran this command was this. That's it. Okay. Now, these files are sorted in a particular way. By default, they are sorted by name. But you can sort this output by size, modification time, and extension as well. How do we do that? Well, the ls command has options that we can use. As a matter of fact, you can see all the options of the ls command by typing ls help. And this is extracted from the manual page of the ls command, and it will list all the options that we can do for the ls command. These options enhance the functionality of a particular program in the command line by giving it more power to it, by giving us more options, by doing more than what the default can do. And we're going to take a look at some of those options in a little bit. Another way that we can access this, like we did in the previous lab, was by doing man ls. And this will open the manual page of the ls command. I'm going to press Q to quit, and I'm going to come back here. Let's take a look at some examples of the ls command. List your present working directory. Oh, that's quite simple. We do ls. List all the files in your current working directory. Now, this is when we start doing modifications, because this is not everything inside your current working directory. Like inside home, there are more files. It's just that those files are hidden. So, in order for us to see that, we can provide the A option. And the A option now shows us all of these files that start with a period. In Linux, pretty much in any Unix operating system, a hidden file is a file that starts with a period in its name. If you want something to be hidden, just put a period at the beginning and it's hidden. Now, notice that you have here two periods. Do you remember what this meant? This over here is your parent directory. And this over here is your current directory. There is an option of the ls command that allows us to still see everything inside a folder except these two guys. And that is capital A. Do you see what I mean when I said different options? They enhance the program by giving us more power. Let's take a look at another option. -L and R. R stands for recursive. And when we provide the R option, we are telling the ls command that not only we want to list, hold on, let me do clear here and then lose just to the L. So I am going to list the pictures folder. Sorry. Okay. The picture directory has one directory inside it. Whenever we provide the R option, we are telling ls, do this recursively. So when you go inside the folder pictures, go inside whatever folder you find and also list that folder. So we can do, for example, A R. And notice that not only did we see, I have a lot of wallpapers. Not only did we see that there is a folder called pictures in there, a folder called wallpapers, but we also saw that the folder called wallpapers has a ton of files in there as well. That's what recursive does. And if we do that in our downloads folder, notice that we also have a folder called inside downloads. We have a folder called White Sir icon themes, but I also have another folder in there called templates, because recursive does it until it finds nothing else to list. So let's do a clear over here and let's move on. Now when you do this, notice that on this side you get a lot of metadata about the particular file, a bunch of information. This information has meaning. This is called long listing. Now these are the permissions of the file, right? What different people can do with this particular folder. The first triplet, the first character over here indicates what type of file it is. Letter D indicates that it's a directory. And if you see a little hyphen, for example, let me create a file, run the command again. And if you see a little hyphen over here, it tells you that it is a regular file. These triplets over here, RWX, RW, RWX, represent read, write, and execute. The first triplet over here tells you that the user, right, the owner of the file, can read, write, and execute. The next triplet is for read, write, and execute for the group that the user belongs to. And then the last one is for anyone else who's not in that group and who's not the user. We're going to learn more about file permissions when we get to that chapter. I just wanted to let you know what this is. Then we have here the number of links. We're also going to explore what a hard link is and a soft link next class. Then you have the owner who owns the particular folder or file, and then the group that owns that particular file. Then we have the size, and finally we have the modification time, the last time the particular file got modified. And the last thing that you see is the file name. There are things that we can do to this output over here. For example, if we do ls minus lh, we modified the size to be displayed in the biggest size format rather than bytes. For example, we call this human readable because look at this, for example. What if you have a file that is 1 terabyte long, that is 5 gigabytes long? Right? Who will want to read that in bytes? You know, it will be useful for us to actually read it in the biggest unit possible. So if I do it again, notice that now we have 4.0 kilobytes. Actually, let me go inside downloads. Let's do the ls minus lh downloads, because here we have more files and we can see better. See, 79K, 77 megabytes, 2.8 megabytes, 257 kilobytes, 4.0 kilobytes, 5 megabytes, and so on. There is more modification that we can do to that output. For example, if we do ls minus ll full time, now instead of getting an abbreviated time, we get the real full time of the modification. Let's do clear and let's take a look at some examples that we have in the presentation. List all the files in a given directory sorted by last modified. Well, we can do that by doing, for example, ls downloads minus t. And now the sorting of this is not done by alphabetically. Now it is done from the last modified file, which will appear on top, to the one that was modified the latest. For instance, if we do minus L and then T for a long listing, you're gonna notice that the last file that was modified was this one, March 2nd at 5:24, and this one March 2nd 5:23, and finally this file whose last modification time was February 23rd at 9:20 a.m. You can also sort by file size by providing the capital S option. Notice that the first file that appears is the largest file that we have in this particular folder, which is, let's provide the H so that we can see how we're modifying the output of this command, right? We want to modify that by providing the H so that it's human readable, right? And we use the S because we want the largest file first. Try the other examples over here on your free time. Now we're gonna do a little practice. I want you to download this file over here, right? So clear, and we can do we can click in this. We can click this, and it's gonna download it. Click on save. Okay, and that's gonna be in our downloads folder. So we wanna move that from there, right? We wanna go to downloads, and let's put this in our home folder, right? So I can just do copy and paste, and I want to extract this, so I'm gonna do extract here. Okay, practice ls, there we go. Now change your current working directory to practice ls, so we're gonna do cd practice ls. List all the files inside the practice ls directory. Okay, so we're gonna do ls. That's everything inside practice ls. However, the next instruction says include hidden files. So we're gonna do capital A. There are no hidden files in there. Now long list everything inside that folder. So we're gonna do ls minus l. Oh, sorry, minus l. Adelante. Okay, next we are gonna do long listing but with human readable file sizes. Then we're gonna do long listing with human readable file sizes, but we're gonna sort this time by last modified. Next, human readable file size, but we're gonna eliminate the group and the owner, and then we're gonna sort it by the size of the file. This is a little bit more complex because we wanna modify this output so that this part doesn't appear anymore. And we want to sort it by the largest file first. Now, this here, how do we get rid of this? Well, it's a good opportunity for us to look at our old reliable help page. Now, if you look at letter G over here, it tells you, okay, group directory files first, the argument with G with option A, but use the sort long disables grouping, and here we have capital G. In a long listing, don't print the group names. Okay, interesting. Let's take a look at that. So if I do G, it got rid of the group. Okay, how about if I do G and then G? Now we don't have the user nor the group. So we got that part done. But the instructions tell us that it needs to be sorted by file size. And last we saw the file size was uppercase S. So you press enter, notice that we meet the criteria. It's human readable. It doesn't include the group nor the owner, no group or owner here, and it's sorted by size first. So 1.5 megabyte is the biggest, so 1.5 megabytes is displayed first. Okay. Next, list all the files inside the practice ls directory, separating every entry by a comma and in reverse order. Okay, so if we go over here in our help page and we go through all the options, eventually you're gonna find option M, which does comma separated. But not only that, you're also gonna find option R, which does reverse sorting. So we're gonna go back here and we're gonna do ls minus mr. And this is gonna, instead of be displayed this way or this way in a column format, it displays it comma separated, but then it reverses the sorting. By default, the sort is alphabetical, so book appears first by default. However, since we reverse the sorting, book appears last, and Tux Penguin appears first. Finally, we are going to list the files in a single column, and we're going to sort it by the extension. Now, if you go here and you read this help page, you're going to find two things. First, you're going to find this number 1 over here. And the description tells you that it lists one file per line, which means that all the files appear in a single line, creating a single column, which works for us. Not only that, you're going to find this one, X. And what does it say here? What are you? No. There you go. This is the one I'm talking about. You're going to find this capital X option over here. And what does it do? Sort alphabetically, but by entry extension. So by file extension rather than by file name. So if we do ls -1x, notice that the first file is people.csv because C goes before D, D goes before G. And everything appears in a single column. Okay, make this practice as much as you want. Obviously, I provided the answers for you over there. And there is a little video as well over there. Special note, pwd, cd, and ls are the 3 most important commands that you need to understand. If you don't know how to move around the file system, if you don't master moving around the file system to a degree where you can do basic things, everything else from this point on isn't really that important. Because even when you run very complicated commands, you still need to move around the file system. So what's the point of being able to hack into a web server if you cannot even move around the folders that you find in there? You know, it's really useless. It's really pointless at that moment, right? If you can't traverse back into directories, what's the point of knowing all of these advanced commands where the basics you don't know? See, it's very good. It's important to understand these basic commands. Remember these 4 things. Your home directory refer to your user's home directory. For example, if the user is called Adrian, this will be his home directory. The home directory refers to this directory, right? The home directory, where everybody that uses the computer has a home directory, right? This is the building, this is the apartment in the building. Keep that in mind. An absolute path always starts at the root, like this. A relative path starts with the subdirectory that's inside your current working directory. Okay? Challenge, do that. Do all those instructions. Do it without looking at the solution first. Just do it and then compare your commands to the solution. There is also this. Make sure you include this in your GitHub repository inside the cheat sheets folder. You will need it. Trust me, you will need it. There will come a point in the class where I'm gonna require you to pull this paper up. So please put that up there. And also include this. The ls command cheat sheet is very, very useful. Keep it handy. I built it specifically for this class. Sources, if you want to read it on your own, go read these books. With that said, I'll see you next class or in the following video, whichever comes first.